Good morning, everyone. All right. We got a little bit of a different question. And if you have your own question you'd like to ask me, just write into askbullmuscle@gmail.com. You can ask it. Consultations typically focused on diet, fitness, or personal finance. But today we got one that was a little bit more of a fun question. Came from the Discord server. By all means, you guys can check that out too. Link below. Hey, Bull. I notice you talk about lifting music sometimes, and what sort of music do you listen to? We already know, but is there any album art that really speaks to you? And I thought this was a really good question. So I went ahead and put together just a short and sweet little PowerPoint presentation with what I think are my top 10 favorite pieces of album art. And we'll go through them. I also because it came up in the Discord, I also solicited the Discord for some of the suggestions they thought, and they hit on some that I had either forgotten about or did not know about entirely. And I'm glad I solicited them for a couple good options as well. So the top 10 list is my choices, but some of the honorable mentions are suggestions made to me that I took one good look at it. I'm like, yeah, I got to agree. That's amazing. So we'll dive into it. So just a little short presentation here. So really, I decided, okay, how am I going to judge this on criteria? Right. Personal preference, obviously. Art is subjective. So you can say my list is trash if you want. How well does the art support or fit the music? Right. If you've got there are exceptions to this rule, and there are some things that can counteract it. But if you've got like a super happy, upbeat, kind of flowery looking like art to pair with death metal, that maybe doesn't work very well. Does it speak specifically to me in some way? If looking at the album cover inspires me to do something, or it's like, fuck yeah, that makes me want to go, I don't know, hit a PR in the gym. That works well. Did it stretch or change the limits of what album art could be? Right. So a lot, some of these were very definitive. Like people hadn't seen it at the time the album was released. This is why I put dates uh, next to all the albums. Would you enjoy looking at it while the whole album just plays? Yes. This is well before the dawn of the internet and iPods and the idea that you could just listen to music as you were doing something else. I mean, you could, but that was called the radio, right? A lot of the time, when a lot of albums, especially for older genres, were produced, you would just be listening to the music on a record player or what have you. And you'd sit down and you'd have this nice album art to look at. So that does play a factor. And again, this is just my opinion. If you don't like it, throw who you think I snubbed in the comments. I'm no art expert, and I'm not really that much of a music expert either. I just know what I like. So by all means, I would love to learn a little bit more. So this is one where if you think, hey, there's an album that just has incredible artwork and the music's pretty damn good too, and maybe you think I should listen to it or what have you, chuck it in the comments section. Would love to get some comments on this video. Doubt I will. Anyway, let's start with a few honorable mentions. So first off, wanted to point out Boston here as a really great example. Am I the world's biggest Boston fan? No, not really. But this is an absolutely iconic album cover, right? You've got the skyline of the city of Boston, at least when this album was created. Inside what looks like a UFO, around a fleet of UFOs attacking what looks like planet Earth. I mean, it's just a cool album cover. It's iconic. You see it pretty much everywhere, but it's good artwork too. It's not just that it's an iconic album, but that the art kind of helps to make it iconic. So had to put that on the list. Californication is another one, right? I like that it much in the way that the Red Hot. This one is where it really matches the album well, right? It looks like a beachside pool somewhere in California, but it looks like the sky is ocean and the pool is sky, kind of like a flipped or inverted effect, which kind of fits a lot of the Red Hot Chili Peppers lyrics, which don't necessarily they're a bit obscure at first. And I'm not the hugest Red Hot Chili Peppers fan, but I do think it's a really good album cover. Like you listen to Californication and you look at this album cover and you're like, yeah, you know what, that fits. It fits really well. Sturgill Simpson, A Sailor's Guide to Earth. So I'm a fan of Sturgill Simpson. I like Sound and Fury more than this album, but I think the album artwork for A Sailor's Guide to Earth is really good. And it fits the whole concept of the album, which is you're trying to give directions to someone to sail through the rough seas of life. Which I mean, right? It speaks to me. Y'all know what I say at the end of every single broadcast, including this one. So what'll guide you through the rough waters of life? Well, they got to have that on there. So credit. This one was a lot of these honorable mentions were thrown at me from other suggestions in the Discord. Some were my own, but this one was good. Manowar, Kings of Metal. It's just a fucking cool, right? This looks badass. This makes me want to go fucking fight someone. It's cool. Yeah, you got a bunch of torn up flags over a pile of looks like a pile of boots and skulls and everything, and one dude with a friggin' it's 80s metal. What do you want? It's 80s metal. I do also appreciate that the US flag is slightly higher than all the others. Much more important. America. uh, so anything by Roger Dean. Roger Dean, if you don't know who he is, and you probably wouldn't unless you were a super big fan of progressive rock, Roger Dean came up with a ton of album artwork for Asia, yes, Rick Wakeman, and a bunch of other Camel, I think. Or no, was it Camel? Yeah, it was Camel, not Gentle Giant. It was one of those two. Yeah, no, it was Camel. It was Camel because Octopus was, yeah. But the idea here is that Roger Dean had some just incredible album artwork where you could look at that for the entirety of the record, and with some yes, or with some with some Asia or Rick Wakeman albums, that's a long time. Like you need something to fixate on if you're listening to Tales from Topographic Oceans. Don't get me wrong, I love that album, but uh it's one where it really fits, but it's also extraordinarily detailed. And I love Roger Dean's artwork. Power Slave by Iron Maiden. Bro, first off, the title track here is one of my all-time favorites. It's a staple in my lifting regimen. And mirroring the Egyptian ancient pharaohs. It's just a cool idea with having Eddie at the center there. Honestly, almost all of Iron Maiden's, I think Iron Maiden is the anti Black Sabbath. Almost all of Iron Maiden's album covers were great. Almost all of Black Sabbath's album covers sucked. I prefer Black Sabbath to Iron Maiden, but and don't get me wrong, I like them both. This is a cool album cover. Like it's a giant pyramid. You got what looks like light or lightning at the top. You got the serpent behind Eddie. You got the two jackals. You got the two sphinxes. And it looks like a funeral procession going up the stairs into the pyramid. It's just cool. It's freaking cool. 1916 by Motorhead, another band where there could have. I tried to stick to only one band or one album cover per band. Otherwise, this would have just been, I'm not going to spoil it, a lot of the same band, but I really like this shows, it's the different nations fighting in World War One. You've got the Snaggletooth bleeding. You've got graves right in between the flags at the bottom, right, with the German and the British flags in the front. You've got a biplane in the top right. It's just the details, the barbed wire, the broken cartwheel, like the implication that right in front there is a trench. I love that. And the song 1916, if you thought all Motorhead could do was speed rock, you'd be mistaken. It's a bit like AC/DC. That's mostly what they do. But 1916 is like Ride On by AC/DC. Proof that these were musicians who chose to mostly do one thing, but if you wanted a tearjerker from them, that song is tragic and beautiful. And then Thornhill, the Dark Pool. So I'm not a huge fan of much more modern metal or progressive metal. Generally speaking, nah, it's not for me. But this was one, a very good album, and two, you look at the details of this for each layer, it looks like you're going down into the pool, so to speak. Uh, I really appreciate the details of that. I think it's a cool album cover. So, couple more. I mean, come on, it's The Gambler. What needs to be said about this that hasn't already been said? You got to know when to hold them and know when to fold them. I do like just the facial expressions of people on each the facial expressions of people in each part of this album cover. You listen to The Gambler, you gotta you gotta know when to hold them, know when to fold them. You look at this album cover, you're like, yeah, just it works, it works. The original Highwayman album. I'm a huge sucker for desert landscapes and architecture, and then having the silhouettes of probably four of the most iconic country singers to ever sing, right up there. I mean, what more do you want? I'm not saying the most because you got Hank Williams and all that, but come on, it's Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, Chris Christopherson, and Johnny fucking Cash. What more? What more? Like we were blessed to ever have this as a supergroup. It's like the Traveling Wilburys, right? Um, you got Lateralis by Tool. There are a lot of good Tool albums. I'm not the world's biggest Tool fan. I like them, I just don't love them. But in terms of album covers, Lateralis, that it's cool. You got the body structure with the muscle, and you got the ring of eyes around it, the eyes in the neck and the hands at the heart. I think it's just interesting. Like I can look at that for a while and listen to a Tool song and be like, wow, to me this fits. To me, I think this fits. I think it's cool. I also think Lateralis is my favorite Tool album, so benefits there. Weirdly, you'd have thought Dream Theater had better album covers. There wasn't one that really spoke to me the way that this did. I like Dream Theater about as much as I like Tool. So I don't know why the Gambler keeps showing up, but this is Miles Davis, Bitches Brew. Pretty damn cool album cover. Not the world's biggest Miles Davis fan, but it was cool enough to where I felt it necessary to throw in here. So like the sort of the inversion on one side of the album versus the other is just interesting to me. It's visually interesting. Disraeli Gears by Cream. I don't know why the Gambler keeps popping up. Why it didn't disappear. That's on me. I should have fixed that. Oh well, yeah, this is a lot for one consultation video for me to create this. This took time. It was enjoyable, but cut me some slack. Disraeli Gears by Cream, right? So you can't have gone through the acid rock years without putting at least one acid rock album on here. And to me, it came down to this one, Crown of Creation by Jefferson Airplane, or Axis Volta's Love by Jimi Hendrix. I think, ignoring what I think of the music, because I like all three albums, I don't love any of them, but to me, I think this does the best job of any acid rock art cover in portraying sort of what acid rock felt like. Like you can listen to a Cream song and look at this album cover and be like, yeah, these guys definitely used a lot of LSD. It's just, and it's there's loads of details, right? Especially if you were high, which again, it's acid rock. That's kind of the point. Uh, the more like the you can look at the little intricate details and be looking at this for a long time and be enjoying it. So it fits the music. It's really quite good to look at, and it I like it. I like the colors too. Um, Purple Rain is another. This one's iconic and it is realistic, but the purple motorcycle with the smoke coming up and the girl in the background. I don't I don't know why the flowers on each side. were chosen. I wouldn't have made that choice, and that's probably what kept this one out of the top 10. That's odd to me. I think you could have just put more additional details related to, I don't know, maybe the contrast was the whole point. Prince was, you know, a really good artist, but I don't quite understand why he did that one. But still a fantastic album art cover. The world is a, oh, I don't know why this one's smaller. Well, The World is a Ghetto by War. This one I recommend. It's like Disraeli Gears. There is a lot you can look at. There is, right, you got the old Rolls Royce getting towed in the front. You got a cop looking on the tow guy. The chauffeur is getting pickpocketed, and that's just in the foreground. And then you got whole lot of other mess going on in the background. Everything's kind of blue and everything's a bit melancholic, right? That was the idea, right? This was produced in Los Angeles in the slums of LA in the early 70s, right? And that was peak sort of LA smog era. So the haze, you've got some very faint buildings in the background, and the music fits that really well. It fits that sort of early 70s LA. Honestly, War uh as a band, I think I would say almost criminally underrated for, I think them in Chicago did fusion rock the best, where it was a lot of jazz, a little bit of reggae, or a little bit of even classical, just all sorts of different elements that brought together into their sound, a little funk, disco, sure. They managed, I think War in Chicago did that better than any other two groups. And then the last one, Tyranny and Mutation by Blue Oyster Cult. There were a lot of Blue Oyster Cult album covers I could have put on here. Secret Treaties is amazing with the band standing below an ME-262. Uh, Agents of Fortune probably wouldn't put that all the way up there, but what was the one with Burning for You? I'm totally blanking on it, but y'all know which one I'm talking about. I'll be kicking myself on that one. Another fantastic album cover, but I personally like Tyranny and Mutation the most. The pyramid with the symbol at the top, which they used in every album art, the checkerboard at the bottom to sort of be a parallel to their first album cover, which also excellent. And then sort of it almost looks like a radio tower with broadcast waves coming off of the alternating black and white, and I think it's cool. Like I could hang this up as a poster in my room, and it would look cool, in my opinion. So those are the rest of the honorable mentions. Let's dive into the top 10. Oh, and the Gambler one more time. First one, Led Zeppelin 1. Okay, right off the start. It's the fucking Hindenburg. But you listen to Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, right? Da 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 da, and it's just declining, right? It almost sounds like a blimp burning and slowly falling to the ground. It's just excellent. Everything about it. It it was iconic. I tried not to lean too heavily on that, but this was, one of the first heavy metal albums. This first Black Sabbath album. I really wouldn't even call Deep Purple heavy metal until they did In Rock. This to me, Led Zeppelin 1 was special in that sense. It changed the world, and while the album art maybe didn't, it put Led Zeppelin on the map. You saw Burning Zeppelin with Led Zeppelin in the corner. It's like, whoa, what were these guys doing? Because this was still 1969. You're still talking the acid rock flower power movement. This is something slightly different. He sells, but who's buying? Come on. First off, you got Vic Rattlehead on here. The another much like Eddie of Iron Maiden, iconic music mascot. You have the UN building in the background with fighter jets going up over top, and clearly a war has been had here. And I like the name too, right? So I learned a little bit about this when Dave Mustaine was creating this album, and the band was creating this album. I guess one of them, I don't know if it was Dave or not, had been reading Reader's Digest, and there was this sort of, Reader's Digesty kind of article that said peace sells, but who's buying? It was just, everybody's for peace, and yet it's so far away, you know. right? Like who's buying it? Who's buying it in Israel and Palestine right now? Who's buying it in Ukraine and Russia right now? Who's buying it in several places in Africa right now? So the answer is Lockheed Martin, baby. Stonks. That's only somewhat tongue in cheek. But yeah, you again, you can look at this and listen to this album cover and not just the title track, which is excellent, but like you listen to Wake Up Dead or you listen to Devil's Island or you listen to Good Morning Black Friday, another fantastic song. This whole album is probably one of my favorites. So that does probably bias it, but I just think it's fantastic concept for a start. I think it's cool. All right, so we had to have at least one Roger Dean album on here. I'm not even the world's biggest Asia fan. I think they're good. They're a good prog rock supergroup. Uh, Little synth heavy for my taste, but it was the '80s. What did you expect? But this mythical Chinese water dragon chasing a pearl with the logo on the top, it's that sort of stylized logo that they went with. It's cool. Again, it put them on the map because nobody knew who the hell this was their debut album. Who the hell was Asia? Well, here you go. That's you find this in a record store, you're like, okay, okay, I want to pick this up. All right, so 5150 by Van Halen. There are a lot of people don't like this album cover, and a lot of people would say, okay, it's good, but it's nowhere, doesn't belong in your top 10. It's what it represents, right? The bodybuilder at the bottom. I think I wrote his name down. Hang on. Let me see if I can find it. Rick Valente, right? So this is this metaphor right here. And I'm gonna grab myself an energy drink because I'm gonna go hit the gym after this. Hang on. Which one do I want today? I got a bunch of them for sale at the GNC. I think I'm gonna go grape and try the peach one. So Rick Valente was a bodybuilder in the '80s, and Van Halen had him do this album cover. And the idea is that it was the idea of Atlas. And look, I'm no crazy libertarian, but the idea of Atlas shrugging, right, is I think it's a good metaphor for a lot of different things. That's all I'm going to say. And then so this looking at this album cover makes me want to go lift, which pairs with the music. You listen to Get Up or Dreams, I want to go fucking set a PR, right? I want to go demolish a set. Uh, and it's also that the Sphere, right, is kind of got that Art Deco look, that kind of maybe early '30s sort of streamliner Art Deco. I'm a sucker for that. Like when I went to New York, my favorite two buildings were Grand Central and the Chrysler Building, just because I love the style from that era. I love the cars from that era. I love the trains from that era. They just bring Art Deco back. Art Deco, bro. How is Art Deco nearly 100 years old? It is 100 years old. It's 100 years old, and it looks futuristic in 2025. How did they do that? Art people, okay. You know what? Here you go. This is your chance to prove that your art major wasn't completely fucking useless. How does uh how does Art Deco still look futuristic in 2025? Or maybe why do I perceive it to look futuristic and positive too? It looks like the future is a good thing when it comes to Art Deco, like that humanity's making progress to something. I like that. I don't know why I like it, but I like that. Maybe it's because I'm an optimist, but I'm a huge fan of this album in particular. The bodybuilder lifting up. By the way, really great instance of how much gymflation is a real thing. This is a professional bodybuilder, right? Rick Valente was on ESPN in the '80s, and I mean, he's impressive. You can tell he's very strong, but compared to some of the guys in the 2000, 10s or 2020s, like he wouldn't even make the competition, let alone win it. So to me, that's just another interesting side note. It's a good perspective, right? So anyway, just a cool album cover in general. All right, the Beatles with Revolver. So you could have argued that Sergeant Pepper belongs here instead. I think Revolver is more interesting to look at than Sergeant Pepper. Don't get me wrong, Sergeant Pepper's cool with all the different people that were on the album. But with the Beatles, it's all different images of the Beatles from their first will that be 5 years, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, as a band, then with the collage of, it's iconic in that way. Like you instantly know this is the Beatles. John glancing and George kind of looking straight, Ringo looking up, and I like it. I think it's cool. And with the collage, I don't think, you've got different art styles. You've got real photos, you've got caricatures, in the center there. You've got like John's ear looks like it's turned 90 degrees almost, stuff like that. Again, visually interesting to look at, and it represented the changing style. And again, it impacted music, right? I don't I think this is the oldest album cover on this list. I don't really recall seeing any album covers before this one that kind of took the art to something more interesting or that would catch your eye. It was usually just, the people who made the music and then a title. Not that there was anything wrong with that, but it's interesting in how it kind of pushed the envelope. Oh, this isn't terrible for flavor, but why? Why is every single energy drink so cloyingly sweet? It's disgusting. Even the ones that are listed as sour, like I got a bunch of these again for cheap. I got one for that was like Warheads, the candy. Warheads are supposed to be sour. This wasn't. This was sweet. I'm like, what the fuck? Are most Americans' taste buds that warped from all the sugar consumption? Anyway, I'm still gonna drink it because it's got caffeine and I need to get some creatine in my system as well. I'm gonna do that. We're gonna dry scoop this hoe because I don't feel like getting water. Cool. Next, we got Dio, Holy Diver. This one, actually, this was, I think, the only one that was suggested to me from fans. And I saw it. I'm like, how did I forget about this one? What's there to say? It's some freaking demon with a chain trying to whip around a priest that is escaping into what looks like some fairly deep water away from the cliff. Is it a cliff from hell? I don't know. It's a Dio album. That seems like it's possibly what it is. Yes. I'm not a fan of dry scooping creatine, but we done it. Anyway, I like how the moon is breaking up the clouds in the center there. You've got what looks like the sunset off to the right side of the album. This is cool. I actually haven't even listened to this whole album in its entirety. I need to. Now I really want to, and I'm probably going to after this stream. Maybe I'll lift it's Dio. It'll probably work as gym music. I'll probably go do that. All right, Days of Future Past. Now, this is one of my Island albums. This to me was Dark Side of the Moon before Dark Side of the Moon in terms of the same concept, right? While Dark Side of the Moon was about the sequence of one's life, Days of Future Past is just the sequence of a one singular day. The best one is if you turn your head, right? If you turn your head such that the right hand side, right over on here, the right hand side of the album is facing down. You can rotate it and you see a human face. You can see lips right here in the pink, right bordering the blue. And then if you turn it the other way, you can see an hourglass and 1 through 12 representing, right, the hours on the clock. You've got moon phases down here. You've got the different colors going from a grayscale through blacks and blues, and then to green, yellow, and red. Right, and then you've got the waves sort of doing the same thing on the top. You listen to the poem, right? At the beginning of the day begins, and at the end of Nights in White Satin, and you look at this album cover, and it fits. You can see little details like the horse, the man riding a horse in the bottom right. The more you look, the more interesting this album cover gets. What represents the eyes in the face? Uh, and this was again revolutionary. Who is doing this in 1967, right? You can say, oh, Sergeant Pepper. I don't know. To me, this is a lot more groundbreaking than Sergeant Pepper ever was. This is the first progressive rock album. Seriously. I genuinely I will die on that hill. It was not In the Court of the Crimson King. I love In the Court of the Crimson King. The first progressive rock album was Days of Future Past by the Moody Blues. This actually doesn't taste bad. It's just too sweet. That's one of them 0 calories. So it's just Alani Nu or whatever. All y'all just tweak the amount of sucralose or stevia or whatever fucking sweetener you're putting in these. Do less of it. It's the same thing like Coca-Cola would taste great if it had maybe a quarter of the sugar that it does. But it makes my teeth itch. It's so sweet. It's disgusting. But I love this album. If you have not, I'll put it this way. One of my friends who has listened to thousands of albums and ranks them all because he's honestly, it's really cool content. He's on Twitch. His name's Sonic X, with a zero instead of the O. Uh, he and I occasionally exchange albums we think the other should listen to, and this is the rare album where we're both like, yeah, this is incredible. I think I like it slightly more than he does, but even he said, dude, this was amazing. Uh, this album just kicks ass. Every part of it. You listen to the whole thing and it just flows. It's like Dark Side of the Moon. You can pick it up at any point and then you're going to want to listen to the whole thing. And then you're going to want to end with Nights in White Satin with that dramatic orchestral ending. Again, you talk about orchestra in rock and roll. This and Sergeant Pepper were really the only ones who did it, and this did it better than Sergeant Pepper did. Fight me, Beatles fans. Revolver was a better album. Okay, Molly Hatchet. Uh, honestly, this was so difficult because I wanted to put this higher because look at it. It's the freaking, it looks like one of the horsemen of death on a black horse with flames in the background and an eagle or a falcon or some other predatory bird coming out the right hand side. But the only downside is that this is a southern boogie rock band. This looks like a fucking death metal album cover. Like the music still fits. Like Bounty, if you, I will say, the first track fits. You listen to Bounty Hunter, da 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 da, bum, bum, right? And then you hear Danny Joe Brown, hell yeah, makes you want to go and kill something or get paid to kill something. Uh, Look, it's called Bounty Hunter. What did you expect? But almost every single album cover they did was something incredibly badass like this with Southern Boogie Rock with it. And I love Southern Fried Boogie Rock, like ZZ Top or Leonard Skinner, but it felt like it does feel like there's a tiny bit of a mismatch between Molly Hatchet in their music and their album covers. I still absolutely love both. But that's why I couldn't put this any higher. But just to prove the point, right? This is their greatest hits album. Again, fucking incredible, right? You've got a badass shreddy warrior in the center with a dragon underneath him, billowing fire, a lightning bolt going through his battle axe, and a shield on the side. Like, does this not like make you want to go do some badass, crazy Florida man type shit? No, I just pulled three. These are just three of Molly Hatchet's album covers. Bro, I could look at that and listen to all their music. Here's another one, right? Or this is the original one. This is probably my favorite. This is the one I would put on the list, but I had to use some others just as an example. Molly Hatchet's album cover game is 100% on par with the best of the best. And if you haven't ever listened to them, if you like ZZ Top or Leonard Skinner or the Allman Brothers, you're gonna love these guys. Or 38 Special, any of them Southern rock bands, or Tom Petty. If you like any of those guys, give Molly Hatchet a listen. You will not be disappointed. This is another one, right? Like this was from later in their art. You've got Vulture on the side, another predatory bird up on the top right, a couple others, freaking erupting volcanoes in the background with fire in the foreground, and then you've got a freaking another warrior holding a battle axe. You get the idea, right? and they're all freaking cool like this. Like this, I mean, even for lifting, right? This makes me want to go become a warrior and go fight and kill some shit. It makes me want to engage in warfare. So yeah, 100% putting Molly Hatchet. This is probably of the 10 bands I put on this list, probably the least well known. But yeah, they just did this for pretty much all of their album covers, and it's fantastic. Okay, you want to talk about iconic, you want to talk about defining a band, and you want to talk about visually appealing. I don't even have to go into that much of a lecture on what Tragic Prelude was. For my non-American art audience, I guess I do need to explain this. This is a painting called Tragic Prelude. Tragic Prelude was created by an artist from the state of Kansas because of something called Bleeding Kansas. Bleeding Kansas was a series of skirmishes in the 1850s and very early 1860s where pro slavery and anti slavery uh, some might say zealots, but settlers moved to Kansas from states like Iowa, Missouri, and the Nebraska Territory after the Kansas Nebraska Act, which stated that the state of Kansas would be able to decide on whether or not it was a free state or a slave state based on the number of people who moved there and voted. Democracy in action, right? Well, as a result, you got border skirmishes, and then you got the man who is yelling with uh, the Beecher Bible, and right, he's got the gun and the Bible in his hands. That's John Brown, who is famous for his raid on Harper's Ferry that escalated tensions right before the start of the Civil War when South Carolina seceded from the United States, or rather attempted to secede for the United States after the election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860. If you look closely in the foreground, you see a fallen Union in blue and Confederate in gray soldier. In the background, you see Confederate soldiers fighting and reloading their guns, the flag. And on the left hand side, you see the Union flag with the Union soldiers. You see a preacher in the background. You see a couple. You can see a couple black bodies and faces of what I would imagine were slaves. Um, I don't know particularly whether or not it was ever specified, the artist ever specified who these people were. But that was the idea, right? You know, during the Civil War, it took until 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation, for black men to fully become part of the U.S. Union war effort. It was, and when it did, it only applied to states that were in active rebellion. So, for reasons of not wanting to piss off the border states, Missouri, Kentucky, Maryland, uh, Delaware, I think. But it's a fantastic album art. It's iconic, right? Tragic Prelude is in the Kansas State House. The whole painting. The only thing I will criticize this cover for is that it didn't get the whole painting. Go look up the actual Tragic Prelude painting, and on the sides here, I think on the left and the right, you'll see like tornadoes, which that is very definitive of the state of Kansas. This is just, the central portion of it, and I don't know why the band decided to cut that out instead of sort of get the whole thing. Maybe it was a permissions issue or a copyright issue, but I'm going to summarize this with a lyric from their first song. This was their first debut album. Again, I'm a sucker for really good debut album covers because it's defining what the band is. Right? You go into a record shop in 1974, you're like, who's Kansas? But you look at this painting, you're like, oh, that's Kansas. You listen to the first song, it's called Can I Tell You? There's a part of it that goes, right, can I tell you something? Gotta tell you something. If you expect the freedom that you say is yours, prove that you deserve it, help us to preserve it, or your freedom will be words and nothing more. I think I got that right. That's off of memory. But it This album, first off, the music is fantastic. The first five Kansas albums. This Song for America, I think it's Facade, Leftoverture, and Point of No Return. Unbelievable. Anything Kansas made after about 1980, you can skip. There's a very small amount of decent songs after that. Like Black Fathom 4 was pretty decent. But like the first five Kansas albums are freaking amazing though. Like they are some of the best music I could ever recommend to anyone, actually. Like seriously. Go listen to this album alone. Journey from Maria Braun, Bell X's, Can I Tell You? It's good. It's really freaking good. Uh, and the violin, the idea of having a violin kind of more centrally pieced into a rock outfit, that's Kansas. No one did that better than Kansas. And that's why I think I really didn't like a lot of their later albums because they got away from that. That's if you hear violin in a hard rock song or a classic rock song, you're probably listening to Kansas. Very few other very few other artists ever really did that much. Maybe Jethro Tull, but even then, Jethro Tull focused around the flute. But yeah, Jethro Tull was to the flute what Kansas was to the violin in rock music, and that's one thing I really liked about them. Obviously, both kind of progressive rock, or at least Kansas was for their first few albums. Certainly, was that they pushed the boundaries of what rock could be, and this album certainly pushed the idea of what album art could be. You don't even have to. Again, this was already a fairly legendary painting, but applying it to your debut album, that's ballsy, right? That is saying we represent this state and we think this album is good enough to represent an entire state full of millions of proud people. Um, I have nothing bad to say about the state of Kansas. I probably wouldn't live there because there's not really a whole lot in the way of hiking because Kansas is flat, very very flat. Uh, but good people live there. Uh, you there are a lot of upsides to that state. Very low cost of living. You if you want to own land and you like all four seasons and you're a hardy type of person because you need to be hardy to live in that part of the Great Plains part of the U.S. And you could do a lot worse in Kansas. I put the same thing about Nebraska. Nothing but nice things to say about people from both of those states. It's very salt of the earth. You get a lot of people who are just they're good to talk to. Put it this way: you move to a small town in rural Kansas, you probably don't got to lock your doors at night. Bought myself an old van from Kansas once. It was Hutchinson County or Hutchinson, Kansas. I forget what the county was called. Thing worked great. I had a little bit of rust on it because it was an '03 and Kansas does get a fair amount of snow, but that 7.3 turbo diesel. God, good engine. Anyway, okay. For those of you who know me, this is not a surprise, right? It was going to be a Roger Dean album, and it was going to be a Yes album. And boy, was this one hard. I could I could have just done this entire top 10 list full of Yes albums, and while that would have been accurate to how I feel in a lot of cases, I think it would have defeated the purpose. I feel like you, the commenter who asked for this consultation, would have left somewhat displeased. This is the computer background screen on my laptop. It is my favorite Roger Dean painting. It is my favorite Yes album. I think what puts this over the top of Close to the Edge, and I'm including Close to the Edge's inside album cover instead of the green to black gradient that is on the outside. Because just go look up the inside album cover to Close to the Edge by Yes. It's incredible. This is somehow even still better. This is my favorite Yes album artwork. It's my favorite Yes album, and I think the artwork is what puts it very slightly over Close to the Edge as my favorite album, both by Yes, which is my favorite band and probably of all time. The Gates of Delirium. When I summit a hike or a mountain, and it feels like I've really accomplished something, like when I summited Emery Peak, when I summited even a couple weeks ago, Kaho'omoe Ihikapulani here in Hawaii, I listened to the Gates of Delirium every single time. I it just it's such a good song. Sound Chaser is unique, interesting, thoroughly progressive, and if you're not into what Yes was, mid 70s Yes, you'd probably fucking hate it. To Be Over is soft, mellow, very good for an introspective kind of like if I'm going for a walk and I'm trying to clear my head and maybe things haven't necessarily worked out the way they were supposed to, or I was disappointed by someone being unreliable or what have you. To Be Over works so well as a meditative sort of song. Still got excellent musicianship, as does it's Yes. What do you expect? The musicianship is incredible. The lyrics are obscure. The lyrics don't necessarily make sense, and you have to you're gonna right you're gonna listen to this album multiple times and discover new things about it every time you listen to it. It's great. I would recommend headphones. I'll put it that way. This is one where high fidelity really does help. But you've got the horsemen going down the incline from what looks like an incredibly steep mountainside cliff carved in through here. You've got the two snakes in the foreground, and this is this is the whole painting, right? So the album cover would be split in the middle, but just look at it. What more do you want? Like I look at this, and then even the font, right? You've got the Yes Bubble logo, which is one of the best in the business. And then you've got the font for Relayer, where it looks like kind of an electric motif. What more could you want from an album art? People, look at this. This is beauty. And again, I could have put The Ladder. I could have put Tales from Topographic Oceans, which is nowhere near my favorite Yes album. I could have put The Inside to Close to the Edge, Fragile, uh, Drama, pretty much any Yes album that was not from the 1980s could go in here. Even Union, not a great album, but the cover. Oh, either Keys to Ascension album, The Quest, their newer stuff. I just what more do you want? Mirror to the Sky, even their bad albums like Heaven and Earth. Again, much like Union, not my favorite Yes album. Not most people's favorite Yes album. The album artwork's fucking incredible, and I've actually met Roger Dean in person. I have actually seen him. I didn't buy anything because it was fucking. I couldn't afford it at the time. I had just gotten out of college, and I wasn't ready to spend shit tons of money on a Roger Dean painting. But if I ever get to like multimillionaire status, I will probably go buy a Roger Dean painting and have it framed somewhere. Like realistically, I want this as like a dude. If I could get this as a T-shirt, man, that would be cool as hell. I'm not one for material items, but the things I like, I really like, and this is one of them. So I hope y'all enjoyed this. It was quite a lot of fun to make, and now that I've knocked down my energy drink, you can hear me starting to get a little bit more of the caffeine in my system. Pro tip: if you have less than one of these a week, it hits like fucking rocket fuel. Highly recommend regulating your caffeine intake to no more than twice a week. If you do that, it gets super effective. Even for a big guy like me, 200 milligrams, I'm ready to fucking go. Right? Okay. So that's all I got for you guys today. If you have your own album arts that I missed, you want me to take a look at, or you want me to listen to the music, by all means, put it in the comment section. I'd really love to see some comments on this video. I don't expect any because this was a long one. It was gonna be, right? It's a fairly I wanted to do a good quality job on this one. So to the consultee who created this video or who requested this video, I hope this satisfies. I hope you enjoyed it. As for me, I have a road day to get to, and then I need to go get. I got a bad wheel wobble developed on my bike yesterday riding out to White Plains, which is annoying because I got it true like less than a month ago. Anyway, I'm gonna go get that done, and then that's really all I had for my Sunday. I've got one more video in the work, but it's not really a consultation. It's just a little passion project of mine. So if you guys want a consultation, you want to ask me anything, can be about music, can be about you know diet plans, fitness. You get the gist of it. Oh, ooh, sore. You can write to me, askbullmuscle@gmail.com. I don't ask for any payment for any of these. The only thing I ask for is that, maybe spread the word because I refuse to run ads on my channel because that's not what this channel is about. As always, y'all, make good decisions. Those good decisions form your actions. Those actions form your habits. Those habits form your values. Those values form an ethos. You be the guide star through the rough waters of life, much like that Sturgill Simpson album cover we were talking about earlier. Hope y'all have a wonderful day. Hope y'all have a wonderful week. I will be continuing to make content like this, as I see fit, as I have it. So I enjoy doing this. It's just a passion for me. The I don't give a shit if this ever, like I'm just happy I made the video. So thank you for giving me this topic to create. Much love, y'all. Come in for the hug. Shoots. Now, boy, would it be cool if I could get a riff from To Be Over to play me out. I could dream on about that.